Round to the nearest hundredth. So the hundredths place is the second spot after the decimal, and in order to round it, we have to look at the one past it. If the one past it is a 5 or more, it increases the amount. So since 8 is above a 5, this goes from 9 to 10. In this case, we look at the one past it. A 1 is smaller than 5, so it's going to stay 0.83. Again, if this number is 5 or bigger, it raises the amount. In the previous lesson, we looked at some criteria for drawing triangles, and we used two side lengths that stayed the same. So the 10 and the 4 are going to stay, but the other side length, that third side length, is going to change. And so there are many triangles that can be created using the side lengths 10 and 4 and just changing that third side length. And you can see that the vertices of those triangles have created a circle. We are going to sketch a circle without using any drawing tools, so no compass, just a pencil. Then in problem 2, you're going to put a dot to represent the center of your circle. When we're finding the center of our circle, we want it to be the same distance to every point on the circle. We wouldn't want to put our center here because then it's much closer to this point on the circle than it is to the point over here. Now there are a couple of videos for us to watch about how other people try and draw a perfect circle.
Hi, Tom here, and in this quick Circle Line Art School video, I'll show you one way to draw a simple perfect circle. First, choose a part of your hand as an anchor, a point where it will touch the paper and not move. Then, place your hand in the middle of your paper, and now move the paper in a circular direction, while at the same time keeping your hand, the whole of your hand, but the single part of your hand, very still. So the part of the hand, the anchor part of the hand that you keep still, is like the center of your circle. And as you place your pen or pencil onto the page, place it onto the page as you've already started moving the paper in a circular direction. And then all you need to do is keep your hand holding the pen or pencil very still from the anchor point, and with your other hand you move the paper to create the circle. Don't try and draw a circle, more try and keep your hand still, and then the circle will appear. I post a new.
So now you're going to sketch a circle by using the strategy shown in the video. Again, just using your hand and a pencil. This is going to be done in your workbook. If I try and turn my screen, it's going to rotate your video as I go. So instead, you are just going to sketch it in your book for problem 3. And now we're going to use a compass, which is a tool for drawing circles, to try to accurately draw a circle. So the compass is the one that looks like this with a pencil on one end and a pointy part on the other. So just like how your hand was stationed in the center and the paper moved around, this time the point is going to stay in the middle and the pencil is going to move around. Now some tips for drawing a circle with a compass that isn't digital is to kind of angle the compass so it's tilted, it's not straight up and down, and then there's not as much resistance on your page. You can still use your compass and stay as a stationary thing and then turn your paper around it if you prefer that method. Now it says construct a line segment that measures 3 inches. So you're going to create a line segment with your ruler that is 3 inches long. Then construct a circle with this given condition. So you're going to place your point on the end of the line segment and your pen on the other end of the line segment. And then you're going to create a circle around that line segment. Copy the line segment by using a straight edge and a compass. Then construct a circle by using one of the endpoints of the line segment. So we can start by using our compass. And what it means by copying the line segment is if we put our point on one end of the segment and our pencil on the other, we're copying that distance. So then when I place it here, I can put a dot where my point was and swing a little arc here. Then using a ruler, I can trace from the dot to that arc to copy that line segment. Then I can use that to draw my circle. This red segment is called a radius. It is the distance from the center of the circle to the edge of the circle. So again, we're going to copy the line segment. We're going to place the end point on the dot and swing an arc. Then using our ruler, we're going to trace a line from the dot to the arc. And it does say, use a ruler to determine the middle of the line segment and mark it with a point. So here I have that it's just over 7 centimeters in mine. Again, you are working on the paper, so it's going to be a little bit different. So it should be just past 3.5. Then it says construct a circle by using this point as the center and the end point of the line segment. So I'm going to place my point on that dot in the center and then my compass pencil on the edge. Now this green line that goes all the way across the circle is called a diameter. So the radius goes from the center to the edge of the circle, and the diameter goes all the way across the center of the circle. Eight, construct a circle that has a diameter of 5 inches. So remember, the diameter goes all the way across the circle. So if we want the radius, we would need it to be half that distance. So we're going to measure out 5 inches, and then we're also going to put a mark at 2.5, since that's where the center of the circle is going to be. And put a mark at 2.5. So the center of the circle is going to go here. This one says construct a circle that has a radius of 2.5 centimeters and label the length of the radius. So we're going to draw a section that is 2.5 centimeters. And the radius only goes halfway across the circle, so we're putting our dot on the end point. Trace the outside edge of the coffee filter. Now I don't have a digital coffee filter, so we're just going to pretend that I have a coffee filter here, which would be a circle. And then it says fold the coffee filter in half and trace around it. So if I split this and I fold it in half, I'm going to get a shape that looks something like this, which is a semicircle. And then it says fold it in half again and trace around that. So it would be folded this way. And that would be called a quarter circle. So a semicircle and a quarter circle. Draw a semicircle with its defining diameter. Label the length of the diameter. But before we do that, let's label some of the dimensions in these shapes. So this would be a radius. And this would be a diameter. Here, this whole edge would be considered a diameter. But this distance would be a radius. It goes from the center to the outside edge. Here, this is also a radius, and so is this. So here we're going to draw a semicircle or sketch out a semicircle. We'll use a straight edge to start us off. I've got a side length here that is, we'll go with 7 centimeters. And that's going to be the diameter. So the radius or the center of my circle is going to be at 3.5 centimeters. So then with my compass, we're placing the dot at the center and the pencil at the edge, and a semicircle goes halfway, and we've labeled the diameter. Now we're going to draw a semicircle with its defining radii. So that's just the plural for radius. Let's do one here that is 4. So with the radius, we use the end points and a quarter circle is a 90-degree angle here. So we're going to connect these 2 points. And this was a 4 centimeter radius. Oh, it just says one of the radii. These are called concentric circles, meaning a circle inside of the circle. And something that they have in common is that they both share the same center. So the center of the small circle is also the center of the large circle. But the difference is the large circle has a larger radius than the small circle. This says construct 2 concentric circles that have a radius of 2 centimeters and one that has a radius of 4 centimeters. So we'll start with our ruler. We're going to draw a side length that is 2 centimeters and then put a dot. And then we're also going to construct one that is 4 centimeters and put a dot. So using our compass, we're going to use the same center. So place our point here. Here for the center. And this will be the outer edge of that first circle. So that one has the radius of 2 centimeters. And then we're going to stretch it out, keeping our point in the center. And this will be the one that has the radius of 4 centimeters. So from the center to the outside edge is 4 centimeters. From the center to the outside edge of the smaller circle is 2 centimeters. Going back to our previous triangle example, all points on this circle are 4 from the center. So we have a center here, and all of them are 4. So each one of these segments or sides of the triangle represents the radius of a circle. There are a few different measurements that are helpful in the circle. The radius, which is from the center to the outside edge. The diameter, which goes all the way across the circle. And then there's a third one that we'll learn more about in a later lesson, but that's the distance around the outside of the circle. Please make sure that your workbook is filled in for lesson 9 and that your warm-up is completed as well.